Imagine what life would be like if tomorrow wasn't a sure thing. That's what it was like for Andrea, a young single mother who came to Cara a few years ago. Cara helps people affected by homelessness and poverty to get back to work, but most importantly, to get a bit of their mojo back in the process. Andrea didn't know if tomorrow was a sure thing because she was a victim of domestic violence. And like many victims, depending on her husband's level of abuse or his mood on that particular day, she didn't know if she and her kids would see to the light of tomorrow. And she actually committed what I would call an infinite act of bravery. She actively chose homelessness. She brought her and her kids out of that situation to a domestic violence shelter so that she could flee, right? So that she could bring her kids to safety. These are the kinds of things he used to say to her. You're so stupid. No man is ever going to want you. You're never going to be able to get a job, and worse yet, you're a bad mom. These words were said to her so often that she didn't just hear them. You know, when someone sucker punches you, you don't just hear the words, you actually feel them, right? You feel the weight of them. You internalize them. You confuse them so much that you confuse what is said to you and what's been done to you with who you really are. So by the time she made her way to Cara, we knew that we had to do much more than just job skills. We had to do much more than just get her ready for that interview, get her ready to sell her skills, get her ready to get back to work. We had to focus on the harder skills. We had to focus on things like love and actually forgiveness. Who do I need to forgive in order to really focus on my future? We had to work on the person that Andrea is before we could ever think about the professional she could be. We had to make sure that when she looked in the mirror, she knew she wasn't a victim, but yet the limitless possibility of her future. So we've been at this for a while, right? We've been doing this for about 26 years now, and in that time, 5,500 people and counting have made their way to meaningful employment, and that's great, because when that happens, they are bouncing back themselves, but also so are all the people around them, right? You know that feeling that you feel when you're kind of hitching your wagon to someone whose new beginning is just getting started, and that's awesome. But the thing is, the problem is super, super steep. The problem in poverty in our country and in our cities across this country, it's toxic. It's actually stealing from our cities the very fabric of community. In Chicago alone, there are 600,000 people struggling in poverty each year. On any given night, you can find 6,500 men and women on the streets homeless. And when you're struggling in generational poverty or episodic homelessness, likely you're blocking and tackling a couple other barriers too. Probably limited education, certainly lack of work experience. Maybe you're in recovery from an addiction, or you've been interacted with the justice system. And when you're fighting all of these barriers, they compound on top of each other, such that getting to and through work is really tough, which is why we came to be, right? And why, over this last quarter of a century plus, we've built, I call them boot camps and businesses that basically create a long dress rehearsal to get back to work. So when I say boot camps, I mean classroom instruction, certainly, meets simulated work experience. Everybody that comes to Cara has a boss. They're accountable to a team. They've got productivity goals. They have rules and regulations that they need to adhere to, because it's a lot of practice to get used to and ready to get back to work. And for those individuals that need a bit more shine on their resume, right, we've got two social enterprises, businesses, one clean slate in exterior maintenance, and one called Cara Connects, a staffing company, kind of a blue collar and white collar option to help folks build the skills that they need to fatten up their resume, take the skills they learned in the classroom and put them right to work. And when we do those things, we end up increasing their marketability. We end up increasing their ability to connect to employers, and so we permanently place them. We place them outside in the private sector into permanent employment. And when we do that, we don't let go. That's actually the time at which we double down, right? We want to be with people in those moments in at least the next year, sometimes 2 and 3, so that we can ride the ebbs and flows of what happens in those seasons. And most particularly so that we can be there in 2 very critical times. One, moments of crisis, right? My childcare falls through. My housing becomes super precarious and we need to come up with a plan B. Or my recovery feels at risk. We want to be in lockstep with our individuals when those crises occur so that we can navigate with them, so we can figure that stuff out with them, so that ultimately their job doesn't become at risk. We also want to be there in moments of opportunity, like OMG level opportunity, right? Like the times when you were transitioning from a shelter to your first ever apartment. And you've got like the dangle of the keys in your hands. You can feel the weight of the keys in your hands. You're about to open that door. You're there with your kids, and you get the chance to say, we're home, you know? You get the chance to really understand that now you're in a safe place where you and your family can live and work and play and laugh together, and that you're paying that rent with income you've earned from your own gainful employment. That's what I love to see. We want to be in those moments too. So that when you bundle that all together, it produces results, real results that stick. I like to call them transformations, not transactions. Real results that stay with us in perpetuity. Results like jobs, 800 jobs and climbing each year. Retention rates that outpace national norms by over 20 points. Transition from transitional housing to more permanent housing at the end of the first year of employment. And most importantly, a social ROI, where for every dollar invested into the mission, nearly $6 is produced in social return. And yet, even as we scale, and even as I get geeked up by this data, because we certainly do, we're very proud of those outcomes, we palpably want more. With hundreds of thousands of people struggling in poverty each year, we want our hundreds of jobs per year, frankly, to be thousands. And so we know we need to open the door and create more on-ramps to our programs in Chicago. We also want to export what is working to other municipalities across the country that need a sustainable workforce solution. And we're gonna make it happen. We're gonna take this show on the road. And even when we do that, though, we'll know that real transformation only happens one person and one family at a time. This picture, it's Andrea, the Andrea that I told you about earlier. Right, this is her at her graduation ceremony from North Park University, getting her bachelor's degree in criminal justice. That's her son, Juju, to the side, right? The only guy in the room whose smile was broader than his mom's the second she took the stage. She took the stage to get her diploma, and he's down there, his little face, his little cute little vest, he's down there, and he's saying, "You go, Mom. You do this. You're crushing it." Right? This kid was so proud of his mom for making this educational ascent. And you know what? I am thoroughly convinced that his future will forever be changed as a result. So he's proud of his mom for crushing it at school. We're proud of her for crushing it in her career. We placed her at Salvation Army, where she is a case manager and continues to thrive, continues to ascend, basically helping individuals in situations not dissimilar to what she experienced a few years ago. Right? And so now, when she's listening to the noise around her, she's hearing stuff like, "Congrats, grad," or "Thanks, boss," or "I love you, Mom." Right? And she recognizes in each of those moments that she is not the sum total of what has happened in the past. She is indeed the limitless possibility of her future. She said to me a couple years ago, she said, people say that Cara is about helping folks find jobs. I say that Cara is about saving lives. When she said that to me, it took my breath away, because I'm like, wow, that's an amazingly beautiful thing to say. But I also recognized and realized it for what it was, which is a call to action. It is a call to arms. It is about saving lives, and we are very committed to doing that. And so to Andrea, to Juju, and to all of you, I say in response, let's get to work. Thank you.